I'd rather slip, walking on water, spend my life wondering what if, Lord, if it's you, tell me to come, 'cause you alone can tame the wildest wind. I know I can make it, 'cause it was your voice that I heard. So I'm stepping out on your word. This is how we walk on water. One foot in front of the other. Never gonna let you go under. Just put one foot in front of the other. I've got a faith deeper than feeling, 'cause I know a name that's greater than the storm. I got a God who never fails me. He's close enough to catch me if I fall. I know I can make it. It was your voice that I heard. So I'm stepping out on your word. This is how you walk on water. One foot in front of the other. Never gonna let you go under. Just put one foot in front of the other. This is how you walk on water. One foot in front of the other. Never gonna let you go under. Just put one foot in front of the other. This is how you walk on water. One foot in front of the other. Never gonna let you go under. Just put one foot in front of the other. I'm stepping out on your word. 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 This is how you walk on water. One foot in front of the other. Never gonna let you go under. Just put one foot in front of the other. This is how you walk on water. One foot in front of the other. Never gonna let you go under. Just put one foot in front of the other. This is how you walk on water. One foot in front of the other. Never gonna let you go under. Just put one foot in front of the other. This is how you walk on water. One foot in front of the other. Never gonna let you go under. Just put one foot in front of the other. The word and I'm walking on water. Say the word and I'm walking on water. Say the word and I'm walking on water. Say the word and I'm walking on water.
Hey, you guys, let's give it up for our worship team. Just like that. Awesome. Nice job. You guys, I am so excited to be here with all of you. If we haven't met before, my name is Brian. I'm the youth director here, and my co-MC here is going to be coming up. Introduce yourself. This is the one and only Baco. Hey, if you guys are going to give up for our worship team, at least give it up for Baco here, okay? Come on. Let's do that. All right. Hey, we're excited that you guys are here with us. If you're connecting online, we are part of this community together, and I'm excited for what God is doing here, what God is doing in each of your lives, and we got an incredible night tonight full of all kinds of fun stuff. So let's start with a couple updates here about what is happening. Some headlines. What are we doing, Baco? Let's start us off with the one and only.
Story. This is what we are doing for New Year's Eve. So it's going to be held here, and what else?
And what else? New Year's Eve, December 31st. It's a Thursday. We are going to be connecting digitally and in person, doing an event helping you tell a better story with your life. That God actually wants to do incredible things in you and through you, And we want to help you live into that life because we believe that you can tell a good story, and good stories are what change the world. And so we want to help you tell those kinds of stories with your life. So New Year's Eve, that's what we're doing. It's going to be This Is My Story. You can register online at redeemermn.org/thisismystory. We'd love for you guys to come be part of that together. Invite some friends. You guys can watch this digitally at your house. You can watch it alone. You can watch it with friends. We'd love for you to watch it with friends if you're able to do that. And then at the end of the night, we're going to be welcoming in the new year together, live in person here. We got some fun in store for that as well. So check it out. New Year's Eve, This Is My Story. It's coming up. I'm super excited about it. And last week, if you were here, you already know about this, but I want to catch you up to speed if you were not here. Last week, I put out a challenge for everybody. I challenged you by asking two questions. Two questions that were, one, what do they need? And two, what will you give? And the whole idea for this is, what if this Christmas, what if God actually used us to make a real difference in someone's life, to meet a real need in someone's life that you know? What if this Christmas, God used you to rock someone's world? And so we want you to be a part of this, to, one, answer that question, what do they need? What do they need? Now, they can be anybody, right? But what is it that they need? I want you to send a direct message to any of our social media accounts on Instagram, on Snapchat. You can send me an email if you want to. But send us a direct message with the name of the person and the need that they have. And then the follow-up is, what will you give? Right? That if you actually want to be a part of a miracle like Jesus, it actually requires you to give. That Jesus would give his entire life for us. That to be a follower of Jesus, like giving is just, it comes with the territory. And so if you want to be part of a miracle, you've got to be willing to give. And that could be giving your time or your energy or your talents. But in this case, what we're asking you to do is give financially, is to actually give some of your hard-earned money to be part of a blessing for someone or someone's this Christmas. So we'd love for you to do that. If you want to be part of our giving, you can do that at redeemermn.org/give. Just make sure that in the little memo line you put youth in there, and it'll get to the right place. I've already heard from a couple of you some names, some needs that are out there that we're going to meet and actually be part of some big miracles in people's lives. I can't share with you what those are yet, though, but they're going to happen. It's going to come. I'm super excited. So, Baco, that's happening. But before we jump to our game tonight, I got to do one final thing that was not on my plan, but I came into the church this morning, and there was a letter for me. And I don't usually get mail here, so I was like, okay, cool. Well, I opened it up. On November 8th, we raised money for World Adoption Day. And we actually helped a real family in their process of adoption. That adoption can cost up to $50,000. In fact, it can cost even more than that. And so we found a family right here in our city, and they're in the process of adoption. And so I reached out to them and said, hey, can we partner with you? Can we help be part of your adoption process? And because of the gift that you guys gave, that a number of you chose to give, that we were able to give over $330 to this family in their adoption process. And they wrote a letter to us, and I just want to read it to you guys, okay? This is from Jeff and Kristen Callender, who is the family that we sponsored. It says, Dear Brian and Redeemer Church Youth, thank you so much for your generous donation to our adoption fund. We are so grateful for your support and prayers as we continue on this journey to grow our family. God bless. So I wanted to share that with you guys, that they received the gift. They are incredibly blessed by it. You guys are already part of being a miracle for a family. And so I just want to say thank you for all of you who chose to be part of this and giving for this family in their adoption process. So thank you guys for doing that. I'm so looking forward to what God is going to keep doing through your generosity and through your willingness to give what you have. So with that, Baco, I'm going to turn it over to you. You're going to lead us in probably the best game of all time. I'm not going to spoil it. Baco, you lead us.
All right. Well, this game is called Questions, Questions, Questions. And how we're going to play is I ask a question, you guys answer it pretty much, and then you get some points maybe, and maybe a prize. But, all right. First question. Easy one. What is 2 plus 2? All right, if you say 4, raise your hand. All right, you get 2 points. If you said B, raise your hand. Okay, good. You got 0 points for that. If you say C, raise your hand. Good. You get 0 points for that too. Actually, you get negative 2 points for that one. But if you say D, fish, if you guys actually think about this, one person. If you actually, 2 people, if you guys think about this, 2 plus 2, fish, like, during high school, I got like straight A's in math. To be honest, I gotta say, this answer is just so like, imaginative, so undefined. It's amazing. 25 points if you said D. Ah. All right, next slide. All right, it's November. We just had voting day, which was on Tuesday. Is anyone 18 and up? Did you guys vote? You guys did? Cool. 2 points because you voted. All right. This is just this is some history too. How many terms did Benjamin Franklin serve? If you say A, raise your hand. 0? All right. I like that. 2 points for you. All right. If you say B, none, raise your hand. You get 1 point, I guess, but I prefer 0 more than none. Makes much more sense, to be honest. Yeah, it does make sense. All right, let's do the next slide. Hope you guys are keeping track of your points, to be honest. All right, what instrument do I play? This is easy. Who says B? Raise your hand. We get only 1 person. 2 people. All right, give yourself 50 points for that. If you say A, it's actually bass. I don't play a fish. I play a bass. Yeah, sure. Next slide. Okay, soon, therefore. A, after. B, yes. C, more. D, none. Soon, therefore. A, after. B, yes. C, more. D, none. All right. Can I get a guess? Anyone? B? Who says B? We got 3 people, 4 people. All right, who says, we got 5 people? Who says C? 4 people. D? 3 people. How about A? Okay, I think B had the most people, so B's the correct answer. Give yourself 5 points. If you said any of the other one, minus 19 points. All right. Okay. Next slide. How old? Me? We? She? 23. D for drinking age. How old are you? How old are you? You in the back. All right. You say D, give yourself 1 point. You say we, I guess 0 points, maybe. C, 3 points. A, 4 points. All right. Next slide. Why is a common cold so common? I can't. A, there's more than 200 viruses that causes the common cold. The human body can never build up resistance to all of them. B, stress and lack of sleep can increase your risk of getting frequent colds. C, both A and B. D, because it is. Okay. Because it is. Makes sense, right? Wrong. It's A, obviously. Who said D? Who said D? Raise your hand. Who actually thought it was D? Be truthful. Minus 300 points. Who says A? All right. Plus 2 points. Nice. I like that. If you said B or C, I don't know. Give yourself how many points you want, but it can't be infinite. Has to be between 20 and 15. So, yeah. All right, next slide. How much is a bag of 9.75 ounce of spicy sweet chili Doritos? We got A, $3.99, B, $168, C, $2.98, D, $4.29. To be honest, I was like looking around on the internet, and they're from all different stores. So if you picked any of them, it's technically correct. So give yourself 1 point. I think I got it from like Menards, Target, and Walmart. Who has been to Walmart and Target? Okay, which one's better? Target? Okay. All right. If you said Target is better, there is a specific time which I do like going to Target, which is between 12 to 6 p.m., mainly because of rush hour. Plus, if you go to Walmart between that time, everything's like out and all the good stuff is gone. So I say if it was like, between 12 and 6 right now, I say those who said Target, you can have 10 points. But since it's not, it's after 6 p.m. Walmart, if you said Walmart, you get 50 points. So. What? You know what? Next slide. This one's special. Who's going to buy me a PS5? You will? You can't afford it, of course. Who's going to buy me a PS5? Be truthful. PS4, no. No one? Well, minus 500 points for everyone, I guess. All right, next slide. Okay, I was going to give you a long-winded question about the French class systems in the 1600s between the bourgeoisie and the proletariat, I guess. But I realized spelling bourgeoisie is really hard. How do you spell bourgeoisie? It's the first one? Dude, there's an R in it, actually. There's an R, there's a U. Yeah. Can anyone spell it, actually? No one can spell it. It starts with B. Yeah, I guess. No one can spell it. No one can spell it. Okay. Minus 20 points for everyone, I guess. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Hey, free points. All right, okay. Everyone think of a number between 1 and 1,000. Okay, everyone got it? Okay. All right, now put a minus sign in front of it and subtract it from your score. All right. Okay, so I bought some prizes. I got Lindor chocolates. I got I got a 6-pack of Gatorade, the yellow one. What's the best flavor? Not yellow? Well, I like yellow, so it's probably the best flavor. And then a 4-pack of Red Bull. Does anyone have a positive score right now? We have one person with a positive, 2 people. Well, neither of you are going to win prizes. Amali, do you have a positive score? Okay. What's your score? Amalia, what's your score? You don't know? Does anyone know their score number? Put your hand down, Cody. Does anyone know their score number? Put your hand down. Okay, what is it? Okay, does anyone have more than that? Okay, Abby, what is it? 439. Okay. Cody, put your hand down, please. Okay, go ahead. Okay. 73, okay. All right, so this is what, okay. First, so Cody is in first place right now, right? I think that's just a good enough, like, thing to have. So Cody, you don't get any prizes. You just get first place. Second place, I think it was Abby, right? Abby, you get whatever prize you want from here. So which one do you want? The chocolates? Okay. All right. Second, oh, wait, third, actually, was it, which? You in the back, in the jacket, Jordan? How many points did you get? 400? 400 something? Who's that? Who got the most? Okay. Which one, Red Bull or Gatorade? Red Bull? Okay. No, I'm not going to throw it. Okay, third place, I think it was you, right? Or was it Malia? You know what, I forgot. How about you guys just share it? Half and half. Yeah, sure? Okay. All right. No, I don't think so. No? No. All right. So that was the end of my game. Hope you had fun. Maybe next time we can up the chances of scoring points, actually.
All right, get your stuff off this. Oh my. Baco, let me give you this too. Baco. I'll put this here for you. Oh my. All right, nonsense with Baco. Questions, and here, you got bags over here too. I don't need those bags. Those can go away. All right. Oh my goodness. Hey, let's give it up for Baco one more time. Quite possibly the most ridiculous segment we have ever had at Redeemer Youth. So, and I'm sure there's more to come. I'm so excited. Oh, Baco. You guys. So tonight we're beginning a brand new conversation called "Shining in a Dark Place," and I'll explain that in just a little bit here about what that means. I want to start by asking you guys a question, rhetorical, so don't answer out loud. What is the worst thing someone has ever said to you about you? What's the worst thing anyone has ever said to you about you? And here's the deal. We all have like our long list of like mean things that have been said to us, right? Like we all have that list, and some of our lists are longer than others. I get that. But we all, like every one of us has like a few things or maybe even just one thing on that list that it just cuts a little bit deeper than anything else. Growing up, I don't know really where I learned this from or like how this thought came into my head, but I grew up with this understanding that I could not show negative emotions. Like if I showed negative emotions, that was a bad thing. So like if I got angry or was frustrated or like sad, then I couldn't show that. Like that was not okay to show those things. I could only show positive emotions. I could only show when I was happy. And so I grew up learning how like that I had to stuff my feelings down, I had to stuff those like negative emotions down, which some of you do that and you know how unhealthy that is, right? And so for me, what I would do is I would stuff those emotions down and eventually they would like build up until there came a moment where I just snapped. And like angry Brian came out. Now here's the deal. I am short today, and I was even shorter back then, okay? I'm not a very scary person today. I was really not a very scary person back then. But when angry Brian came out, you did not want to be the target of that. Angry Brian was awful. And I hated it about me. I hated that like I would just explode and angry Brian. I hated that about me. But I was a little kid. I had no idea how to fix that or change that. I didn't know how to do anything about it. So in middle school, I would always show up early, like before school started, because they would open up the gym and I would go play basketball. A bunch of people would go. We'd all play basketball together before school started. And so one day I went early to go play basketball in our gym. And there was always this one kid that was way better than everyone else. And he knew it. And he was like street ball good, where like it wasn't good enough for him to just be better than everyone else. He had to like embarrass everyone else. Like he had to like show that he was better than everyone else. And so I'm guarding him this one day, and he tries to do that like move where it's like, oh, he's dribbling the ball, he grabs it, bounces it off your head, and like grabs it and like dribbles. Like, he tried to do that, but he just threw the ball right in my face. And I lost it. I lost it. I snapped so bad on him. Angry Brian came out. I got right in his face. I'm like pushing him in his face and his chest. I'm shoving him back. I'm swearing at him. Like I lost it. And after like 15, 20 seconds of me just like losing it on this kid, I finally had like the sense to be like, I need to walk away. And I walk away. And just as I turned to walk away, one of my closest friends, I remember him saying, "Whoa. He was a little ball of anger. Look at that little ball of anger." And that nickname stuck with me for years. That for years, anytime that like the slightest little bit of like anger would come, like anytime I'd show just a little bit of anger, just a little bit of frustration, the people around me would go, "Oh no, here comes the little ball of anger. Ah, the little ball of anger is about to come out." For years, those toxic words that were spoken into me created this belief in me that I am an angry person. That's who I was, an angry person. And anger was bad, right? Because I can't show my negative emotions. I have to stuff that down. So anger is bad, but I'm an angry person, which must mean that I am a bad person. And so I would get angry, but I couldn't show it, otherwise somebody would call me that little ball of anger, and so I'd stuff it down, and eventually it would build up, and then it would just explode, and sure enough, the little ball of anger would come out, and just the cycle would repeat itself over and over. Little ball of anger. What about you? Like, what are your words? What are the words that were spoken over you that just cut a little bit deeper than anything else? Like, what were the words that were spoken over you that you still carry with you, like deep in your soul? Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words may never hurt me, right? Until they do. Like, that's just how it works. Like, that saying is just not true. And words have power. Words have so much power, and negative words do too. Words that are spoken over you that are evil and toxic and hurtful, those words have power too. And I think it's why Jesus, why he talks so much about why we can't be careless with our words. Jesus said so much about how we actually need to be intentional about the words that we speak over people, because there's power behind them. That Jesus talked about our words like all the time. And in fact, even Jesus' followers talked about the power of our words. And even his followers understood that words were so powerful that even with the words that we speak, we could actually speak things into reality. There's one of the guys that was close friends with Jesus, one of his disciples, a guy named Peter. That Peter was like one of Jesus' closest friends. And Peter did life with Jesus. Like he was with Jesus all the time. And Peter is one of these guys who he would write letters to people to tell them about Jesus. And some of those letters are actually what we call part of our Bible, part of the scriptures, that some of these letters actually got put into the Bible. And one of those letters is, we call it 2 Peter. And I want to just read a little passage from this, a piece of this. That this is from the lips of Peter, right? A follower of Jesus, one of Jesus' closest friends, about the power of words. This is what he says. He says, "For we were not making up clever stories when we told you about the coming about the powerful coming of our Lord Jesus Christ. Right? We're not making up clever stories. He's saying, like, listen, I was there, right? We were there. There's people. We were eyewitnesses. We were part of this story. These aren't just like little fairy tales. These aren't just clever stories. We were there. This actually happened. He says, we saw his majestic splendor with our own eyes when we received honor and glory from God the Father. It says, the voice from the majestic glory of God said to him. So he's saying, like, God, he was there when he heard God's voice speak over Jesus these words, this is my dearly loved Son who brings me great joy. We ourselves heard that voice from heaven when we were with him on the holy mountain. And he says, because of that experience, we have even greater confidence in the message proclaimed by the prophets. We're going to talk about prophets in just a minute. But you must pay close attention to what they wrote. For their words are like, here it is, a lamp shining in a dark place. For their words are like a lamp shining in a dark place until the day dawns and Christ, the morning star, shines in your hearts. He says, above all, you must realize that no prophecy, again, we'll talk about that in just a second, why no prophecy in Scripture ever came from a prophet's own understanding or from human initiative. He says, no. Those prophets were moved by the Holy Spirit, and they spoke from God. Now, this is Peter, right? One of Jesus' disciples, one of Jesus' friends. Peter's telling us these things, and he starts by giving us this experience. He's talking about this experience that he had, that he was with Jesus, and there's other people there too. When God spoke into Jesus these prophetic words, these words of this is my Son, this is my beloved Son, this is my dearly loved Son, he brings me great joy. I'm so pleased with him. You see, Peter, he was around Jesus for years. And Jesus had so many critics. That there's so many people that would speak those toxic, hurtful, evil words over Jesus. And Peter was there. He heard all of it. And he says, in spite of all of that, these words spoken from God, that this is my Son with whom I love, that those were the words that Jesus let shape his reality. That these prophetic words from God were the ones that would shape Jesus' life. And then he says that there were these prophets. There were these people years before Jesus ever walked on this planet. There were these prophets who spoke about Jesus. And their words, he said, are like a light, like a lamp shining in a dark place. He says, if you want to know what Jesus is like, these prophets, they spoke about Jesus. That God, he spoke about Jesus. That all of these words that people spoke, they were like little lights shining in a dark place. But though we might walk in darkness, though we might not really understand who Jesus was or what faith is about, or that there are these words, these pockets of people who have spoken words that are like lights that guide our path, that are like lights shining in a dark place. And when followers of Jesus get intentional about the words that we speak over people, and when those words get coupled with the power of the Holy Spirit, that's when our words can become prophetic and they can shape reality. Now I'm going to pause here because I've talked a little bit about it. I got to back up because we have to talk. I keep saying this prophetic words idea. I keep talking about the prophecy or prophetic word. And when I first started coming to church, I was like in middle school. I didn't grow up really going to church. I didn't really have a faith background. And when I came to church and people started throwing around like, oh, it was a prophetic word, or oh, it's prophecy, or it's like, oh, the prophets, and I was lost. Like it sounded like somebody was speaking a totally different language. Like for me, whenever someone talked about like, oh, yeah, that was a prophetic word, I had this like understanding that that's just some like special ability for like super religious people. Like, okay, cool. And that's not the case at all. So I want to explain what prophetic word means. When I say prophetic, what does that mean? Prophetic, in kind of like a simple way, prophetic means like a prediction. Okay, prophetic is like a prediction, sort of. Because it's not some prophetic is not some like arbitrary guess at the future, right? It's not some like arbitrary prediction of like, I predict the horse is going to fall out of the sky on Thursday. Like, that's not prophetic. There's nothing prophetic about that. Prophetic is when you take the evidence of your current reality and you project that into the future. So let me give you an example. If you chose to just never do homework again, I could prophetically tell you, you will probably fail most of your classes, right? Because what am I doing? I'm taking the evidence, you not doing your homework, and going, hey, if you do that, here's what the future looks like, right? That would be a prophetic word. Another example. If you said, hey, from here on out, I'm going to work out every day and eat healthier every day. Well, I could prophetically tell you that you will become stronger and healthier, right? Because again, what am I doing? I'm taking the evidence of what you're actually doing, working out every day, eating healthier every day, and saying, if you do that, here's what the future looks like for you, right? Prophetic word is not this like weird, complicated thing. It's simply looking at the evidence that's around you and going, hey, if this is true about you, then that's where you're going to be going. Now, when I talk about prophetic word, though, for Jesus followers, this is one area that as followers of Jesus, we actually have a little bit of an advantage. And I don't say that very often because I don't get on my high horse about being a follower of Jesus. I mean, there's a lot of things that like come with that, a lot of baggage that comes with that. But really, truly, one of the advantages of being a Jesus follower is that we have a perspective that is different than anyone else on the planet. You see, the standard like perspective that people have towards each other is essentially the, hey, however you behave today, well, that's just who you are, right? However you act, whatever you say right now, that's just who you are then from here on out. And so if you say something or do something that I don't like, if you behave in a way that I don't like, well, again, I can just cancel you from my life and be like, no, that's just who you are, forget you, I'm never going to talk to you again. That's like the normal way that people, like the perspective that people have. I'll judge you based on who you are today because that's my perspective, and then forget you. You can never change. You'll never look different. That's just who you are. But as followers of Jesus, we actually see people from a completely different vantage point. That we get to see people from a completely different perspective. That as followers of Jesus, we actually see people from the perspective of God. That we actually have the ability to see people from God's point of view. Where instead of saying, like, hey, that's how you behave right now, so that's just who you are, we now can step back and look at a person from where God is at and go, no. Yeah, that might be the way that you're acting, but that's not who you are. Because you were created for something more than that. Because from God's point of view, who you are runs so much deeper than the words you just spoke. Because of who you are, like who God created you to be, is so much different than who you've been in your past. That as followers of Jesus, we have this perspective where we get to actually see people from where God sees them. And what prophetic words are as followers of Jesus is when we choose to see people from that vantage point. When we choose to look past however they might seem or not seem, and we see them for who God sees them to be. And we call that out of them and say, this is who you are. This is who we're going to project into the future. Have you ever had someone call out of you something that you never knew was there? Coaches are really good at this. Some teachers are really good at this. I told you guys that I, for years, carried this belief with me that I was a little ball of anger. That was my nickname. That's just who I was, right? This little ball of anger. And for years, I carried this with me. And so I started to actually get this idea that well, if I'm a little ball of anger, I can't be angry because being angry is bad. And so I would do everything in my power not to get angry. But I also didn't want to make other people angry because that would be me making them a bad person. So not only was I doing everything I could to avoid being angry, I would do everything in my power to make sure nobody else was angry. And like at face value, that's like almost like a noble thing to do, except in like the real world, that doesn't work. You see, what that meant for me is that if I wasn't going to get angry and I was never going to make someone else angry, what that also meant was that I would never have a difficult conversation with someone because they might get angry. I might get angry. And if I make them angry, well, then I just made them a bad person. So for years, I chose to just not have difficult conversations because that would be a bad thing. But one of the privileges that I get to have working at a church is that I get to work with a ton of volunteers. It's awesome. I love being able to do this. But there are times, even with volunteers, that I need to be able to have difficult conversations. But for years, I never did. And what ended up happening is that because I was avoiding difficult conversations, I would let my volunteers show up with really poor attitudes. And even if it would affect other people, I just wouldn't say anything. And if they showed up and they had really poor leadership or really poor behavior, I just wouldn't say anything because I don't want them to be angry and I don't want to be angry, so I avoided these hard conversations. And what ended up happening was that my best volunteers started getting angry with me because I wouldn't have difficult conversations. And now I have unintentionally made people angry. All because back in middle school, somebody called me a little ball of anger. Well, there came a time where I had to actually make a shift, and I actually had to make some really difficult changes with the way the volunteers worked. And so I had to have a hard conversation with a lot of different people, a lot of individuals, and with my team, that I had to take some volunteers and move them into different positions. I had to take other volunteers and give them more responsibilities. Some volunteers I had to take out of the team completely. And so I remember there was a day where I had to, after having a lot of these conversations individually with people, I sat down with the rest of my team and kind of talked through all of the changes with them. And there were a lot of people who were angry with me that day. A lot of people. Because it had taken way too long to make those changes. I remember that night I went home and I was just crushed. I mean, I was a bad person because I had gotten angry at some people. I'd made other people angry, and so I had made them. I I was just crushed. And that night, I got a text message from one of my most seasoned veterans, a friend of mine. It was one of those long texts. And in this text, he's writing to me and going, hey, Brian, you had to make some really difficult changes, man. That's got to be really, really hard. And he kept going. And at the end of this text message, he simply wrote the words, Brian, I trust you. And when I read those words, something in me just broke in the best way possible. You see, what I had learned as a little ball of anger was that if I'm an angry person, if I'm a little ball of anger, if I'm that person who might just blow up at any instant, one of the things that I believed about myself was that I was not a trustworthy person. Because you cannot trust someone who is all happy-go-lucky and positive and encouraging one day, and then just in a moment can switch, and angry Brian, the little ball of anger could come out. The monster could be released. You can't trust a person that's like that. And what I'd realized is that since middle school, I cannot remember one time that somebody had spoken the words, I trust you, to me. And because of words that were spoken to me all the way back in middle school, I had this belief that I wasn't trustworthy. And when I read those words, Brian, I trust you, it was like God broke through this lie that I'd been believing, this darkness that had been growing in me, and it was like a light started to shine in a dark place that hadn't seen light since middle school. What that volunteer did was speak a prophetic word into me, saying, hey, I see this evidence in you, Brian. I'm going to call it out because you are trustworthy, and I do trust you. That's what a prophetic word looks like. That's what a prophetic word can do for a person. That when we become the kind of people who choose to speak prophetically from God's perspective into a person's life, we can break through darkness and be a light that shines in the darkness. Now here's the deal. There are all kinds of ways to speak prophetic words into people. There are. And after this, you guys are going to have a chance to go back to your growth groups and have some further conversation. And so I thought what might be really helpful is, in light of this idea of prophetic words, I wanted to give you just a couple examples of people in my own life who speak prophetic words in very different ways, okay? Because that's like one of the beauties of this, is that Jesus doesn't just say, hey, if you want to speak a prophetic word, you got to go face-to-face with somebody and just tell it to them. No, there's all kinds of ways to do this. And there's all kinds of ways for you to do this. So I want to just give you a couple examples from my own personal life. The first one I want to do is that we have actually a tradition up at our camps called encouragement notes. And how this simply works is like, hey, you see somebody doing something and you want to encourage them, so you write it on a note, you fold it, you put their name on it, and then we collect all these notes and deliver them to people throughout the week. Right? That's what an encouragement note is. And when you've been doing camps as long as I have, I've been doing camps for over 20 years, you just inevitably get a lot of encouragement notes, which is super, super cool. And if you've gotten a lot of encouragement notes, you also know, this is kind of weird to say, but you also know that some encouragement notes just are a little bit more meaningful than others. So when I first started doing camps, when I first started being a volunteer and actually starting to get into ministry, the youth director here at Redeemer at the time, Paul, he pulled me aside one day and said, hey, Brian, I want to give this to you. And he gave me this book that was just a bunch of blank pages. I was like, okay, that's weird. He said, here's what I want you to do. Anytime you get an encouragement note, a written encouragement that actually is meaningful, an encouragement note that actually speaks some real truth about who you are, I want you to put it into this book. And he said, because there are going to be days, Brian, where you're going to doubt yourself. There are going to be days where that darkness starts to get real dark. And you're going to start believing things about yourself that aren't true. But if you put those notes in here, you're always going to have something to go back to and look at. And since 2007, I've been collecting encouragement notes that have been really meaningful to me. Page after page of encouragement notes and thank you notes and emails and letters and things that people have just given to me on a whim. And I've just filled up this book with all these encouragements, with all these words that people spoke into my life. In fact, in 2016, I finished this book. I ran out of pages, and so I went out and I got a brand new book, and I started filling the pages in this. And what these books have done for me is that when I start to doubt myself, I go back and I read some of these encouragement notes, and what they are like little beacons of light that shine into my darkness. Then when I start doubting who I am, I have an entire book of things, 2 books of things, of encouragements that tell me who I am, that these are now like little prophetic words that shine light into my darkness. You see, one way that you can speak prophetic words is simply by writing them down and giving them to somebody. That those words can last a lifetime for a person. So that's just one way to speak prophetic words. Another way to speak prophetic words, and this is a personal example of my wife, Abby. Now, if you've ever had a one-on-one, like a conversation with my wife, Abby, if you've ever heard her speak from the stage, you kind of know this about her. Okay, I'm going to say something that's a little bit weird. We as human beings tend to create love affairs with our pain. We tend to have love affairs with our darkness. That's kind of a weird thing to say, but I want you to think about this. Like, how often have you heard someone, or how often have you heard yourself say the words, well, that's just who I am, right? You say something mean, or you act a certain way, and you're like, no, that's just who I am. Like, we have these ways of justifying the worst part of us, don't we? I mean, really true. It's like we have these love affairs with our darkness. Now, my wife, Abby, she has this way of seeing into that, like, that darkness that we carry around with us, and she has this way of asking questions that cut right through all the BS, that cut through all the pretending, all the lies. My wife has this way of asking questions that are really hard, but are really true. It's almost like a prophetic question that she asks, that she can see right through all of the garbage we try to put on, and she just gets right to the heart of it and goes, but what about that? And you see, like the imagery that I get with how my wife does this is like, she'll never like pull you out of your darkness. She won't do it. But what she will do is she'll put her arm around you and go, hey, you see that? That's the light. The journey from here to there is going to be a long time. It's going to be really difficult. There are going to be days you hate doing it. But I promise you, the journey there, the journey towards the light, will be so much better than the comfort you find here in your darkness. That my wife, Abby, has this ability to speak these prophetic questions into people in a way that says, hey, I will point you to the light, and I'll walk with you there, because it's going to be a long journey and you're going to need someone. So for my wife, that's one way that she speaks prophetic words to people. Another example, actually two examples, are two of our volunteers here that we have, Cody and Hallie. Now, we all know people who are just encouraging people, right? I hope that you have a number of people like that in your life. And then there are people like Cody and Hallie, that their encouragement just lands differently. Like I can't quite fully like wrap my head around it. Like I don't know fully what it is, but there is just this there is a genuineness to how they've encouraged me. That when I hear from Cody, when I hear from Hallie, it's like the picture that I get is like when I'm in my darkness and they speak encouragement, it's like they just take it and poke a hole in my darkness. They just like they poke a little hole. And if you've ever been in a pitch black dark room except for one beam of light, where do you focus? On that light, right? That is who they are for me. That's and not just for me, but for all kinds of people. It's like they see the darkness that someone is walking in and they just go, yep, little light. And for me, their encouragement for me have been like lifelines that I can hold on to. That though I don't understand everything, though I'm still full of doubt, I can still look at that encouragement and go, I know that is true because they said it. Because for whatever reason, that's how God is using them to speak prophetic words into my life. And I want to give you one last example here. One last example. I didn't tell you that I was going to do this, so I apologize ahead of time. But there's someone here whose encouragement for me has been so timely these last few years. The way that this person speaks prophetic words to me has radically changed the direction of my weeks, my months, and a lot of the decisions that I've made. Abby Strecker has this way of speaking these prophetic words into my life that are so timely. And it's so bizarre and weird. And Abby, you're probably going to know exactly what I'm saying when I say this. Abby has this way where and she doesn't know this about me, but as soon as I start doubting myself, as soon as I start getting that do I have what it takes? Am I really meant to be doing this? Is this really am I really not actually that great of a person? As soon as that I start, that darkness starts to come in on me, Abby has this way of just, in a timely way, stepping in and being hey, Brian, you remember when you said blah, 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 a month ago? Yeah, that was really meaningful for me, thank you. And then she'll just walk away. And what? And the number of times that she has done this for me, it's bizarre. And the picture that I get for this is we all have our own little pity parties. And so for me, when I'm having my own little pity party and it's I've got my hand on the dimmer switch and I'm just dimming it down, dimming it down, dimming it down. Abby will come along and just be hey, there you go. And walk away. I don't know what it is. That is her way of speaking prophetic words into me. You see, there are so many ways to speak prophetically into someone's life. And God is calling you is to do just that. To get a God perspective on people. To stop just looking at people for how they behave right now. To stop just looking at people for what you see on the surface. But to get a perspective that is so much bigger than what most people have. A perspective that God sees, that sees right through all the pretending, that sees through all the garbage, and to prophetically call out the best in people and project that into the future. To prophetically call out of someone and say, hey, this is who you truly are. I believe this in you. You see, the world is full of people walking in darkness because of toxic, hurtful, evil words that have been spoken into them. And I know that's true because it's true for every one of us. That every one of us carries words that have cut deep. And sometimes those words might even seem true, right? Because from that perspective, well, yeah, that is what you said. Yeah, that is what you did. Yeah, that was how you acted or behaved, right? But from God's point of view, those words couldn't be farther from the truth. Because God sees so much deeper. And we now get to step into that space. And when we do this, when we choose to become like lights shining in a dark place, this isn't just like, hey, we're going to go say nice things to people, or hey, we're going to go, be kind, or just say words to make someone happy. Like, those are all nice and fine, but those are so shallow. When we choose to speak prophetic words, we speak words that are empowered with the Spirit of God in us because they come from Jesus. They come from the God who sees exactly what we're going to speak. But there's so much power that can come from your prophetic words over a person. But you need to choose to step into that space, to take a risk, and actually call out what God sees in a person and actually deliver that to the person. And when you choose to do that, it's like a light shining in a dark place. And when light breaks through the darkness, everything changes. That for someone like me, a person might no longer believe that they're a little ball of anger, but start to believe that they're actually trustworthy. And when that changes at the core of a person, the person changes. And I know that. And my encouragement to you, my challenge to you, my call to you is this. Will you choose to see people from God's point of view? Will you choose to see past the behavior? Will you choose to see past the immediate words or decisions that they're making? And will you choose to see this incredible person that God has created and call that out of a person? Because when they start to hear those words over and over and over and over again, when they start to see light shining over and over and over and over again, that's when a person's life can change. And that's when Jesus can do the incredible work of shining eternity into darkness. So we're going to sing one last song together. And I encourage you guys, you don't have to project your voice, but I encourage you to sing along, to let your heart worship, to connect with God, to let the lyrics of the song to be prophetic in your life, to speak what is true about you and what is true about God into your life. And tonight, if you've never known the light of Jesus, I would encourage you to talk to someone, to come find me. I'd love to pray with you. I'd love to talk about Jesus with you. And if you're at that place where you want to cross the line of faith and say yes to Jesus, then I want to pray with you about that. I want to help you take your next steps in your faith journey. And I want to celebrate with you that you are beginning to walk in the light and you yourself are becoming a light to the world. So let me pray for us. Heavenly Father, I just want to say thank you for the people that you've placed in my life who have spoken prophetic words into me, that have called out of me what I couldn't see in myself. Jesus, I'm so thankful for the people in my life that have chosen not to see me for who I seem to be, but who see me for God, who you see me to be. Jesus, you continue to break through my darkness and shine light because of the people in my life. And Lord, what I know to be true is that is what you are calling us to be for each other, what you are calling us to be for a world that is so walking in darkness because of the words that have been spoken over them. Jesus, tonight would we hear true words about ourselves? Would you break through our own darkness and shine a light there? And God, as we start to hear your voice, as we start to know what is true about how you see us, would we begin to see others with that same perspective? And would we choose to speak light into the darkness that people are carrying with them? Jesus, you give us prophetic words, not to be religious elite, but to be like Jesus and bring a little bit more of heaven right here on earth, to shine a little bit of light into dark places so that you can transform lives. Jesus, tonight, would you do that in us?
Fullness of eternal promise, stirring in your sons and daughters, earth revealing heaven's wonders. Spirit come, Spirit come. What you spoke is now all your children shall behold it. Dreams awaken in this moment. Spirit come, Spirit come. Pour it out, let your love run over. Here now, let your glory fill this house. Pour it out, let your love run over. Here and now, let your glory fill this house. Now the world awaits your presence, and this power is within us. We will rise to your witness. Spirit come, Spirit come. Pour it out, let your love run over. Here and now, let your glory fill this house. Pour it out, let your love run over. Here and now, let your glory fill this house. Tongue of fire, testifying of the Son, one desire. Spirit come, speak revival. Prophesy like it is done, one desire. Spirit come, tongues of fire, testifying of the Son, one desire. our King is soon returning. As we hold to this assurance, Spirit come, Spirit come, Spirit come, Spirit come. Pour it out, let your love run over. Here and now, let your glory fill this house. Pour it out, let your love run over. Here and now, let your glory fill this house.
What I know is that God wants to pour out his love on you. That this tends to be the time of year where that darkness can become very real. Where we kind of get through some of the mundane, where the winter starts to come, days start to get shorter, and it's in that darkness that God wants to pour out his love in a real way. And I know for me, personally, more often than not, that comes not from some mysterious voice in the sky, but from an actual person who chooses to speak prophetic words into my life. And when that happens, it's like a light turns on in the darkness, and something begins to shine in me again. Now tonight, if you're at that place where you want to take that first step of faith, to cross the line of faith and say yes to Jesus for the first time, I want you to come talk to me, because we have this way of celebrating people who do that. And what we do is we give you a light bulb, because you become the light of the world. That you become someone who can now shine in a dark place, because you are now living from a perspective that you are no longer living from anymore. And you are now filled with the light of the universe, Jesus. So come find me if that's you. And if you're watching online and it's a decision that you're making there, send us a message and I want to connect with you personally. And I want to help you take your next step in your faith walk. Now next week, I want to encourage you guys to come back, because next week, we're actually going to create a space for prophetic words to be spoken over you, spoken into you. Some by maybe some volunteers, and some from you, from each other. It's going to be an opportunity where I hope you get some encouragement, where you get a little bit of life, where wherever you might be at in this season, I believe God wants to give you hope, and he wants to shine light in your darkness and begin you on a journey of walking back in light. So be here next week. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be memorable. It's going to be something you don't want to miss. Right now, we're going to get ready to head to our growth groups. And there you guys are going to be able to unpack the message that you heard and go a little bit deeper, make it a little bit more personal, and maybe even have an opportunity to practice thinking about and speaking prophetic words over each other. Who knows what God might do in your groups tonight. So I'd encourage you to connect with us. If you're watching online, connect with us over Zoom. The meeting ID is right there. But for all of us, let's stand together. And we're going to say these words together as a declaration that we are going to choose to take a step of faith in the direction of prophetic words over each other. You guys ready? Let's say these words together. Each week, we take a step to signify our continuing walk with Jesus Christ. 3, 2, 1, step! All right, you guys have a great time in your growth groups. We'll see you next week.